cigarettes, and it causes them enormous health problems. And about 70 to 80% of all of our expenses in America are from self-induced problems. Well, they were on the radio discussing this, Hillary's health care plan years ago. And I called in, I said, I forgot to change oil in my car, and the motor blew up. I'd like everybody to help me buy a new motor. And they said, well, if you forgot to change oil in your car, that's your problem. I said, yes, and don't you see it's exactly what you're doing here with health care? If you forget to take your vitamins and you eat junk food all your life and you smoke and you drink and you take drugs and you cuss and you run around with women and wild women and you get diseases, you want me to help pay for your health? I think you created the problem, then you ought to fix it. Or you ought to pay for it, that's for sure. I should not have to pay for their stupidity. And if my neighbor blows up his car engine because he doesn't change oil, I'm not going to help him pay for it. I don't want to be forced to pay for it. I might do it out of Christian charity. But see, taxes are really forced contributions. Put a gun to your head, give me your money. Okay, that's not voluntary. Totally opposite of the Christian philosophy. If evolution philosophy follows through, you end up with a democracy where the majority of the people get together and decide what's right and wrong. Not at all what the Bible intended. Our founding fathers in this country said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. It came from the Creator. God made us. Those folks, now they weren't all Christians, but they were strongly influenced by Christianity. And they thought God created it. They said that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Rights that you cannot put a lien against. If creation is true, then there's a Creator. And He decides what's right and wrong, and He gives us certain rights that you can't take away. And you don't need the government's permission to do things that God told you can do. Now, if you ask them for permission, they'll be glad to sell it to you, of course. But you don't need to ask their permission to do certain things. Thomas Jefferson was a deist. Now, he was not a Christian. I doubt that he's in heaven. I hope he is, but I doubt it. He did not believe in miracles. Here's Jefferson's Bible. I have it here on the screen. The last verse in Jefferson's Bible says, there laid they Jesus, and rolled a great stone to the door of the sepulchre, and departed. End of the Bible. He thought that's where it stopped. He didn't believe Jesus rose from the dead, and therefore the whole New Testament was irrelevant. But in spite of the fact that he was a deist and not a Christian, he was influenced by Christianity, and he certainly believed there had to be a Creator, and he believed the Creator gave us rights. And that's why they wrote the Declaration of Independence and threw all the tea in the harbor and, founded this great country we have. And it's amazing how many folks today talk about how great the founding fathers were. We put their faces on our coins and on our money, and we write about them in our Christian textbooks, and we should. But yet, if it happened again today, it'd be about the same as it was back then. Only 3% of the population followed or supported the revolution. The rest were Tories who were opposed to it or didn't care. The majority of folks didn't care which side won. They thought it was just going to be, nothing would change. And I think today we have an awful lot of people who have given in to unnecessary demands of our government. I think you should obey the law. I do. I obey the law. But I would be throwing the tea in the harbor tonight if the party was going on. Okay, we got to hurry. If creation is true, then laws come from the Creator, and rights are unalienable, and the government should be limited. There's only two functions of government that they're supposed to be doing: punish evildoers and defend our shores, defend our country. The government should not be involved in education. They should not be involved in welfare. They should not be involved in about 80% of the things they're involved in. They just have no business being involved in it. And so if we get back to the constitutional limits of our government, the budget would drop to real far down there, probably about 2 or 3% of what it is today. This is called a constitutional republic. Now, in a republic, the law is supreme. Everybody obeys the law because the law came from the Creator. The president, her husband, everybody on down should obey the law. That's a constitutional republic. Genesis 1:30, God said to every beast of the earth and every fowl of the air and everything that creeps on the earth wherein there is life, I've given green herb for meat. And it was so. Originally, every beast ate plants. Some people say, look at those teeth, man, that's a meat eater. No, that happens to be a close-up view of a panda bear. He's a vegetarian. This is a skull of a fruit bat. He lives on fruit, has very sharp teeth. Here's a vegetarian monkey. All it does is eat plants and vegetables. It's got sharp teeth. Before the flood came, everything was vegetarian. Man and animals were all vegetarian, so they weren't afraid of each other. Nobody's going to eat you. Everybody's fine. The animals didn't have to fear man. After the flood was over, in Genesis chapter 9, God said to Noah and the boys, go have a bunch of kids. And boy, they did too. He said, and the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth. The first change after the flood, animals became afraid of man. The second change after the flood, God said, every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you. So God is saying it's okay to eat meat now. You can eat anything that moves, and it's perfectly fine to eat meat, and I do. Okay, I'm not a vegetarian, though vegetarians are probably healthier. Pork chops and bacon taste awful good, so I eat them once in a while. Paul said in Romans chapter 8, he said, for I reckon, by the way, that proves he's a southerner, he said, I reckon that the sufferings of this present time, is there suffering in the world today? Tons of it, right? There's an awful lot of suffering in the world today, and that's what gets the atheist all confused. Charlie Darwin said, I am bewildered. I had no intention to write atheistically, but there seems to be so much misery in the world. Why would God make a world with suffering? He couldn't understand, if God made the world, why do the lions eat the zebras and the other animals? Well, Charlie, it's not the way God made it. See, God made a perfect world, and man wrecked it. But Charlie Darwin's philosophy, in his book, he said, thus from the war of nature, from famine, from death, the most exalted object we are capable of conceiving, namely the production of higher animals, directly follows. He thought the way to get ahead, for things to get better, is for there to be struggle, suffering, death, misfits. This is Adolf Hitler's philosophy, folks, to a T. Hitler certainly believed that and practiced it. See, God made a perfect world. Animals were all friendly. The lions and the lamb would lay down together, and man destroyed that because of his sin. By one man, the Bible says, death came into the world. Sin came into the world, and death by sin. The Bible says in 1 Corinthians, by man came death. In Adam all die. The reason we have this death in the world is because of Adam's disobedience. And you can't look at a wrecked car and blame it on the manufacturer. Let's send this picture to Chrysler and say, hey, why did you build a smashed minivan? Well, they didn't build a smashed minivan. It got smashed later. And you can't look at today's wrecked world and say, see, God, you made a world of suffering and death. No, God made a perfect world. Man wrecked it when he sinned, and then the flood really wrecked it. So we're looking at a devastated world, folks. Today we live in a junkyard. This is not what God, this is the same planet, but it's not like God originally made it. It's just been destroyed. But God's going to fix it back someday. He said, someday the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, the leopard shall lie down with the kid, the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. See, God's going to fix the world back like it used to be. Now we're going to go through a time of suffering here, coming up any day. There's going to be some hard times. And people argue about where the 7-year tribulation fits, and do the Christians get raptured out at the beginning? I happen to believe that, though I'm willing to listen to other opinions. I believe I'm pre-trib rapture. Having studied the subject for years, I still am convinced that's true, though, like I said, I'm willing to listen. Some people think the Christians get raptured out in the middle. They're called mid-trib or post-trib. They get raptured, Christians get raptured out at the end, whoever's left, whoever survived the 7-year tribulation. And then we enter a 1,000-year reign of Christ. And I don't know, I wouldn't be real dogmatic on any of the positions, but the Bible certainly teaches there will be 7 years of trouble and turmoil on this world, and there will be a 1,000-year reign of Christ. And apparently God's going to fix things back like it used to be, because the lion shall eat straw like the ox. That's the way it's not that way now, but that's the way it's going to be. And a child shall die 100 years old, Isaiah 65 tells us. Well, apparently something's going to be different, maybe like it was back under the canopy in the Garden of Eden, where when you're 100 years old, you're still considered a child. That'd be neat to be a kid for 100 years. No responsibilities. That'd be great. I suspect God's going to fix the world back like it used to be in the Garden of Eden, and we will get to live here and see it like it used to be for 1,000 years. Rule and reign with Christ for 1,000 years. That's going to be great. Well, join us again next week. We'll talk more about the subject of creation and evolution and show you how dinosaurs fit in. Thank you so much.
For more information on the ministry of Creation Science Evangelism, write us at Creation Science Evangelism, 29 Cummings Road, Pensacola, Florida, 32503, or call us at 850-479-3466. That's 850-479-DINO. You may also visit us on the web at www.drdino.com. That's www.drdino.com.